Welcome to Rise from the Ashes. Our podcast looks at various issues for families. We'll be talking with attorneys about personal and legal concerns having to do with divorce, custody, and parenting time. There are also a few topics about letting go, moving on, and new beginnings. Please keep in mind this podcast is only to inform and help to understand legal and personal issues as it relate to family law. It should not be considered as a replacement for a qualified family law attorney. When in doubt, please contact a professional. Rise from the Ashes, focusing on matters of the family because family matters. Hi, and welcome to our podcast, Rise from the Ashes. I'm David Braddock, and I'll be the host for the podcast, and we're talking today with Alma Miklosevics. Alma is an associate attorney here at Mundahl Law, where you guys do pretty much family law, don't you, Alma?
The majority of our practice is family law, yes.
Our subject for today is adoption for same-sex couples. Why might adoption be important to a current stage of a same-sex couple's relationship?
Well, if we're talking married same-sex couple, there is a presumption of legal parentage for any child born during the marriage. You have that, but at the same time, that is not an ironclad presumption. It can be challenged, but it leaves the door open for the non-biological parent to lose that relationship with the child. There are a few reasons for that. One of them is that you may not always live in Minnesota, and some states do not allow second parent adoptions like Minnesota does. That could create problems for you in another state, maybe with school, maybe with medical records, ensuring health care, travel. There are any number of ways where that could become an issue. In general, I recommend that if you're a married same-sex couple and you are the parents of a child, I would recommend that the non-biological parent get a legal adoption.
What about family members, like extended family members? Do they fall into the equation at all with respect to same-sex couples' relationship to a child and adoption consideration?
Yeah, they do. One of the things that legally adopting a child impacts is your estate plan. And so if you legally adopt a child for purposes of estate planning, that child is then your descendant. I would suggest that the reason that that may be important for folks in the LGBTQ community is that family members aren't always supportive of who we are. So if you have a child with someone and you're not married when you die, that child will have no right to inherit. A family member could step in and say, I'm next in line. That's one way that members of your extended family are a consideration here. And then there's also the other side of that. Suppose you have a child with someone and your partner dies and you haven't yet legally adopted that child. You may be leaving the door open for a family member to come in and say that you don't have a relationship with that child. You're a non-biological parent, and they could come in conceivably and try to take custody of that child.
Oh my.
So there are some really good reasons to do a second parent adoption.
What about if a couple is not married, but there is indeed a child that is a part of their family? What happens then?
There's obviously even more risk there if there's never a marriage to begin with. You'd certainly want to speak to a family law attorney about that. I have seen situations where a same-sex couple in a long-term relationship, maybe one of the parties had a child prior to the relationship, and the non-biological partner has essentially, for all intents and purposes, been a parent to that child. You definitely want to get a legal second parent adoption, provided the biological parent is willing to consent to that. But the risks with that are even greater. If you're not married and you have a child with someone, maybe 5 years into your relationship, you decide that you want to have a child together. One of you carries the child to term, you use a sperm bank donor, so there's no dad in the picture. And then 5 years later, your relationship is not doing so well, and all of a sudden, if you're the non-biological parent, you could find yourself out of the house with no legal right to custody or parenting time at that point.
And that after having been a very good parent to that child during the course of that entire time that they were with you.
You might have even been the primary caregiver for that child. You might have been the stay-at-home parent, the one who did all the doctor appointments, the one who did the school stuff. And suddenly you could find yourself in the position of having to fight just to get time with your child. And it may not be easy. It can certainly be done. There are certainly provisions for third-party visitation, but that's not the same as being on equal footing as a parent with the child's other parent.
Are there any other pros or cons to this topic of same-sex couple adoption?
Yeah, in general, we're talking stability for the child, number one, and that's who we really have to look out for first and foremost here. A legal adoption creates a legal relationship that can't be challenged in another state. It can't be questioned, and it puts you both on equal footing as parent. And, your child needs that. Your child deserves that. And it provides you with a peace of mind, because who knows where life will bring you, what opportunities will come your way. And your dream job could open up tomorrow and you could receive a call and need to be there in a week, and it's in a state that doesn't allow for this type of adoption to take place. You don't want that to hold you back. Peace of mind for you and stability for your child, really, those are two big ones.
So if a couple really saw the positives of adopting their child, is it a complicated process, Alma?
Well, it can be, but it doesn't have to be. I've had these cases go very easily, simply, very straightforward, beginning to end, maybe 3 to 4 months. But they can be complicated as well. Obviously, if there's a second biological parent in the picture, there has to be consent from them and notice, and that can make things much more complicated much more quickly.
Well, you've certainly highlighted a lot of important aspects of why to adopt your child if you're a same-sex couple. How can this be properly done?
My advice would be to contact a family law attorney. This is too important, and your child is too important, and you want to make sure it's done right. The Minnesota Judicial Branch has some great forms and information. It is possible to do it yourself, but it is not advisable. It's really just too important.
I've even heard of some adoptions that take place, and there can even be a little celebration that may happen in the courtroom where the judge is really happy for the family that they've been able to pull together something meaningful with the current family.
Yes, David. And in fact, that has been a huge bummer about COVID, because these hearings haven't been happening in person for the past year, roughly. And hopefully soon we start to be able to do that again. But typically what used to happen pre-COVID, you get all your documents in, you get the background study, and you get the hearing date, and you're in court, you, your partner, your child, the judge, and I walk you through the petition, and then the adoption gets finalized. And there's a photo opportunity with the judge, it's court staff. It's really a nice experience. The courts often don't get to deal with joyful stuff like this. So it's a great treat for them as well, and they treat it as such. It's a great experience, a great thing that you can do for your child, and a great thing that you can do for yourself in your relationship with your partner.
Thank you very much, Alma.
Oh, thank you, David. Thank you.
You are listening to Rise from the Ashes, the podcast channel that takes a careful look at all things having to do with legal procedure within the family law process. Rise from the Ashes is sponsored by Mundall Law, who specializes in assisting families and individuals through the legal process with respect, dignity, and caring. Mundall Law is dedicated to helping people to solve their legal problems. You can visit the Mundall Law website at mundalllaw.com or call to schedule a consultation with one of their qualified family law attorneys. Rise from the Ashes, focusing on matters of the family, because family matters.